welcome to Marketing LIve TV for this week, where you can engage in real-life marketing live on the show. This week, I'm really excited to have a new show structure and a really exciting guest on the show. We're going to talk about blogging and blogging for your business this year and things to make note of. And this is going to be a three-part series on blogging for your business and how you can maximize not only the planning, the writing, and the distribution of your blog to make sure you get the best result. So bear with us for hopefully an exciting and interesting show this week, and stay tuned and we'll show you more. Alright, so as I mentioned, thanks for watching. If you would like to be part of the show or have any questions or comments about blogging for business, feel free to comment on Facebook or YouTube or Periscope. We'll see all of those and we'll jump in and answer those as best as we can. But for this week, I'm really excited to run a bit of a new show structure, and I am really excited to welcome Amy Jones to the show. So if you bear with me, I will bring her up with me here. And hi Amy, how are you?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
Very well, very well. So Amy, you are a bit of a background on you. You're a copywriter and have been blogging for a while?
Yes, that's correct. I started blogging about 10 years ago. So I started it back before, just as it started to become popular, more as a journal to keep track of my thoughts, and eventually I blogged quite a lot, and it was featured on my graduate school homepage. And then, so through that, I became a copywriter and learned a lot more about blogging.
Great. And so that obviously gives you some pretty good experience to talk about our topic, which is blogging. So thanks for joining me today on the show.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. So just before we jump into the topic, I'll just bring it up here, that if you would like to sing out or ask any questions, the social channels are up there at the moment. Feel free to join on any of those and call out, and we will answer all the questions that we possibly can. All right, so let's bring us both back up here. Okay, so I've got my own opinions, Amy, but what would you say makes for a good blog?
Well, of course, geez, that's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question.
Because, the key to blogging is knowing who you're talking to. But that's the same thing we learned back in 5th grade, right? So when you're learning to write in 5th grade, they say, know who you're talking to, know your audience. And I think that's the key with anything. And I think that's the number one thing that you'll find will make a good blog is if you know who you're talking to, you'll connect with your audience, and that's what will make your blog really good. And then there are some other things that you can do to add the extra oomph. Things like titles and headings and bullet points and making it easier on the eyes. That always is great too. And then obviously we love images. A picture can say 1,000 words. And so, so that helps too. But I think the number one thing is just knowing who you're talking to.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And making sure that you're on topic and engaging as much as you can will definitely make sure that you got a more successful than less successful blog. So, okay, so
can I add to that?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I also have some personality. So I think it's not to be, your personality is not to be missed. And so instead of writing perfect grammar, perfect sentence structure, things like that, when you're writing a blog, a lot of that stuff you're going to put in because it shows your personality. For example, when I write a lot like I talk, and I'm very Southern, so would have even in my, in my blog, would say y'all, because I would say that in person.
Yeah.
And so putting those things in there, if you're Canadian, a lot of Canadians end every sentence or every couple sentences with A. Writing how you talk and adding that personality too, I think is a huge key, because no one wants to read, a journal article for a blog.
No, and they won't read it very often.
Right. Made your content much more compelling.
Yes, absolutely. So, so in planning the content for your blog, or in planning your blog overall, I quite strongly believe that you should have some sort of plan and some sort of way of an objective for doing it, even if it is only just being creative. And I like, in terms of planning for the blog overall, I actually have an opinion that there's probably 4 main objectives, and you might have a different opinion, but they sort of stem around, whether it's SEO, you're trying to gain some positioning in search engines, so you write the blog towards those, whether it's customer engagement, you're writing to increase the customer visits to your site and engagement. You might just write for creativity purposes, or you may write for customer sort of feedback or customer sort of FAQ type answers to those sort of things. What about you? Do you have any ideas on other reasons that you might start a blog?
I'm wondering. I mean, I started a blog for my personal reasons, right? So I never intended for it to really be it was public, but I never intended to drive traffic to it. So, so sometimes, you may keep a blog just for yourself, but I think to that end, though, one of the most noble causes for blogging is to want to impact your community. And that, to me, I think is bigger than anything else. Whether you're a business or anything, I think having that underlying message of I really want to bring something to my community as a way of giving back. So some people, I think, do that to add value, sometimes to their business, but also to their community. And so the reason when I was blogging in grad school was I started to keep track of who I was, but then it kind of evolved because maybe I lost who I was. Maybe I lost track of who I was anyway. And so, so basically I was so involved in grad school that I just, it was my life. And so I blogged then for new students who were coming in to help them with transition and just with topics that would come up. So I think, giving back to your community is a really good reason to have a blog.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. There's another great reason to start. And so, so once you've got your reason, and I suppose we spoke earlier on making sure that you're talking to the right people. So once you've got your reason, you'll have who you want to appeal to, I guess. So then the third part, or I guess the second part to what I consider planning of a blog is the schedule. So, do you have any ideas? I'll start with my opinion, is that, as long as you're doing it to the best of your capability, the schedule doesn't really matter, in my opinion, but it also depends on your audience. So if you're trying to guide people there frequently to your website, whatever, then obviously doing it once every quarter is probably not going to achieve that result. So, but that's my opinion. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. Somewhat. I think you have to, like you said, start with the end in mind. And so if your goal is, just giving back to your community, then blogging when you can is a service, right? So
Yes.
that's nice. But I also think that there's something to be said about having a habit. And I think for those of you who have not started blogging and you're thinking about it or whatever, and you're like, I don't know what to write. Well, this miraculous thing happens when you start blogging, and it's you come up with things in the shower that you want to write about. And you're like, no, wait, I'm in the shower. I can't write that down. And so you're keeping this blog topic in your head. So I say that to say that I think once you start blogging, how much won't be so much of an issue, because your brain then is looking for reasons to blog, and so you'll find reasons to blog. And I think, just doing a good job. And if you are trying to build your blog as content for a website or to drive traffic to a website, it's really important. I read a study for SEO purposes. There's always this question of, more quality or more quantity.
Yeah,
it's like the
absolutely.
ongoing question. Yeah, and I wish I could remember. I think it was Neil Patel who I saw that you may reference, and I think it was him, and then another gentleman, and I can't remember his name, and forgive me for forgetting, but he said, and this was kind of paraphrased, but he said HubSpot gets millions, and I think it's 2 or 3 million views a day on their content. And they publish something like 12 articles a day. Yeah,
they go for quantity, definitely.
So they go for quantity. The other blog that they mentioned, which I can't remember because it was not as substantial, but I mean, it's still huge. They go for quality. And so they have, some of their blog posts are like 3,000 words long. And so that's huge. And they still have less traffic. So their conclusion based on that was maybe quantity is better than quality.
Yeah.
And so if you're driving traffic, you may, in the beginning, want to be blogging a lot, pushing out a lot of content.
And I guess that's where there's probably difference in strategy behind the blog, where you may post once a day something that is designed for the quantity part, and then you may have cornerstone content or whatever it is that is featured to drive that quality of ongoing traffic or whatever it may be. But yeah, that's I guess that all depends on what we said earlier and being the objective. If you've got low quality and you're posting every day and the customers aren't reading it, then you need to you probably need to adjust something. But yeah, that Neil Patel study was quite interesting, where he posted, he looked at the length versus cadence or quantity.
Yeah, but I want to say that to the listeners, when I say quality, I don't mean that it's not still highly targeted to your reader. When we talk about high quality blog, a high quality blog means a thorough, in-depth article on a topic, right? And so HubSpot's, even their low quality, I still read them. I mean, because a lot of they still have value, right? It's just a short snippet as opposed to a huge long novel. And so I try to be clear about that, because I don't want people thinking, oh, well, they're just, it's published something that's, low quality, as in it doesn't engage the reader, or it's not something people are searching for. It is something people are searching for. It's just that it's not that thorough, in-depth.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's a good point, in that it might be less depth, but still valuable to the consumer. So, yeah. Absolutely. And this is always an interesting one. So in terms of sourcing topics, do you in what you do, being a copywriter, how do you go about sourcing topics for your blog, and is there a process that you sort of have to not only source the topics, but work out what's a good topic, I guess?
So I think, again, this is about, your goal, right? So from a personal standpoint, as a personal blog that, and sometimes we blog as a personal blog and then it becomes something that people like to read, right? So if you are not a business and you're just a person and you're like, well, I just really want to blog, I mean, there are probably a lot of people out there who need to hear what you have to say. So when I say that, personal blog, I'm not trying to diminish that, that task, because it's still very valuable to the world. They need to hear what you have to say. No one has been through what you've been through. No one's had those experiences, and the only person that can tell us about them is you. So I don't mean to say that that's any less or better, but they're two separate realms. Yeah. So as an individual blogging, I used questions that people were often asking. And so I was in a lot of forums, and a lot of forums I could see what new students were asking. I used my personal experience, questions that I had when I started there, in grad school. So I used that kind of as a starting point. And then I just looked at topics that I had a heavy opinion on. And that wasn't hard, right? But as a copywriter, it's a little bit different. So because you really want to be targeted, and you want to make sure that you are answering questions that your audience, have. So it's really, the market's very competitive. And so we always look at our competitors, So I always look at competitors. What are they writing about? What seems to be getting the most traffic on their website? What kinds of, questions are they answering that seem to get the most traffic? What are they engaging with, on social media? What are people asking on social media? And that's a really good way. And then also Google. So, if you want to have a topic for your business, whatever your business is. So, for example, if I were going to write a blog article on blogging, I might go to Google and type in the word blog. And Google has this whole list of things about blogging. Well, that's things that are frequently searched. And so I might choose something from that list to try and find something as well to write about. But typically, doing that makes sure that your content is targeted. But usually, once you start writing, if you're in your target market and you're kind of engaged with them, I feel like you know what to write about. Well, I feel like I know what to write about as well. And then there are other tools. People use a lot of other tools, SEO tools and things like that, where you can find out the top performing blogs or the top performing topics with a certain keyword. Some of those, I don't know if I should say. Should I say the ones that I know of?
Yeah, well, actually, it's a really good segue into a new segment. So I'll do that because that's perfect.
Okay.
So I wanted to add a new segment into the show just to sort of break it up and give a bit more value. So one of them, the segment is called Marketing Hack. So for those watching, they can see that overlay there now. So basically what I wanted to do was, sorry, I'm just bringing up this. So I wanted to cover a tool that I've known a couple of bloggers use, and that is a Chrome extension called Keywords Everywhere. Now it's a Chrome extension. It's an SEO tool. And it's a really helpful tool to get other ideas around a search topic. So watching the screen now, you can see I've opened up Google, and if I search on here blogging, it will come up with my results, and then we see here. That one hasn't come up with any results, so I'll choose a different topic, blogging for beginners. And what you see here is that, well, I've got it limited to Australian searches, because obviously I'm in Australia. It might not be so good for you, Amy, but it brings up this this little section here that lists out the keywords, the volume, the cost per click, and the competition levels for those particular keywords. So and it does it within the search that you do. So here I'm just adding in different search topics, and what that will do is it will add in the keywords and bits and pieces that that you search for. So it's a really useful tool to do it as you're just searching through, and then you can add those to your notes or whatever it may be, and go from there. So that's this week's marketing hack. Just basically a tip or trick to sort of make your life a little bit easier. All right. So sorry to interrupt you there. But that all, which all stems from researching your topics into actually researching your keywords and titles, into researching the actual topic you're going to write about. So do you have a way that you do a lot of your research? Because you write on a varied number of topics, from what I understand. So obviously there's not one place that you go to for everything, but if you would recommend a couple of tools for researching, what would they be?
So it's interesting because I actually recently learned this neat thing that you can do. Copy Hackers is a website, and I think her name is Jo. And she came up with a really neat thing, and maybe she's not the first person. I'm just had never thought about it, but Amazon. So if you go to Amazon and you look at the reviews on, say, let's suppose you're writing a book, you're writing on law, or you're writing on parenting or anything like that, right?
Yep.
If you look at the comments, it's interesting because that actually will give you information about your target market, and it will give you information too about the topic, right? So that's a really good place to start for some research, because some of the research is, well, what are people looking for on this topic? And then some research is, well, what do I say? How do I need to focus my writing? So seeing other people's books, other people's writing, that's key to helping you know. So for me, I always look for quality sources. And the interesting thing is, if you're writing for someone that's highly technical, usually they will give you sources. So for example, if you're writing for an attorney and you're writing for a law blog, they likely will give you resources that have accurate information so that you can do research on whatever it is you're writing about. If you're writing on a topic that's not quite as, I don't know what the word structured or legal, the legalities of writing for law is a little bit different than writing for other things, right? So if you're writing for other things, I still always want to look for reliable articles, reliable content, people who are leaders in that industry, and never plagiarize. So I just, I think it's so important that that we all have our own voice, and that we realize that, if someone has said it the best way it could ever be said, just give them credit for it and say, hey, I do it here. I say, hey, I saw this here. I saw this here. Because I want those people to get credit for those great ideas.
Yeah, no.
But we still get the opportunity to use the idea, right?
Absolutely. Just because it's adding your own spin to whatever, not spin, but your own voice to whatever topic it is. And I have to add to that, one of the most valuable sources of information that I've used is a similar one, and that is customer feedback, like simple customer feedback, and knowing they'll tell you what's wrong with a product or what answer you need to give by simply, ask. They'll tell you when there's something wrong, and if they tell you more than once, then obviously you either need to educate your customers or you need to fix something, and that's generally a pretty good start for your research on a topic. But then aside from the Googles and the other blogs that are out there, I always actually find the library another good one.
I love the library.
I know it's old school, but
my kids make fun of me because when we go to New York City, I'm always like, can we please just go to the New York Public Library? And if you've never been to the New York Public Library, you should just go. It's a dream come true. It's like floors and floors of books, and the library itself is old. So yes, library, even if you don't want to look at books, you should just go there and enjoy the presence.
Yeah.
Enjoy the atmosphere. Hashtag I'm nerd.
Well, don't worry. I've got my fair share of books here. So yeah, that's I guess some read and some watch videos and others listen to podcasts, and I guess where I try and do all of them so that I can make the most of everything. So. So we're just about running out of time. So what I'll do is there any other parts to planning a blog that you think is really important that we get through this week before we jump into next week's show about actually writing and creating your blog posts?
I think one thing that I alluded to is being able to write down ideas. And so like I said before, when you first start blogging, you're going to have to go places to get ideas, right? But then after you've gotten into writing, you will start to come up with ideas. And so I would just really suggest that you have some kind of either a Google document or pen and paper in your purse or in your wallet or in your car or truck or whatever, somewhere where if you get an idea, you can write it down. Because those ideas are going to be golden when you come back to try and write later. And so just having that, dedicated space for writing down ideas, I think is really important too. And then also we talked a little bit about a schedule and scheduling in your writing time. So even if you don't feel like it, if you have a scheduled time to do it, then you can sit down, and if you don't want to write your blog, you can write to yourself. Or I just find that once you get started, a lot of people have a hard time with a blank page. And so if you just have that scheduled time to sit down and just start writing, eventually the blog post will come, but it's just having that scheduled time. And so all of that comes before even writing, because once you get in the habit of sitting down and having cleared space and cleared mind, and you have then eventually a list of topics you can select from, and it just becomes much simpler.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me on the show this week. Really appreciate your insights, and we'll hopefully have you on next week for the writing part, which I know that you do really well. So, the next week, same time, 8:30 on Wednesday if you're in Australia, and Australian Eastern Standard Time if you're anywhere else. And the shows are always available to watch afterwards. So if you miss it, that's okay. And make sure that you subscribe or share. If there's any other questions that you have, feel free to ask or comment. And other than that, we will see you again next week. So thanks for watching Marketing Live TV.